You're listening to Death of the Reader. This is Herds and Cam. Woo. And this is part 2 of our discussion of Who Shot JR, part of the TV show Dallas, American TV show, very famous show. And today we're going to be discussing episodes 1, 2, and 3 of season 4, which are the interim episodes between JR getting shot and JR's shooter being unveiled. And I am really looking forward to this discussion because it is simultaneously so much happens. There's so much time, days, weeks, like a month maybe passes. But at the same time,
it spent so much time
because it's a soap opera. Yeah. There's all this waffling around with, you know, our estranged brother Gary comes to town because he's done with his own show for a little bit, so he can check in on the family. And like Sue Ellen, eye twitching her way through every single scene, and I don't know, Bobby seducing his
Bobby
political
being
rivals,
being seduced by his rival's widow. Not only are there A plots, there's B plots, there's C plots, and there's even D plots in this show. We got so much going on. It's all happening in Dallas. It's all happening in Dallas.
It's all happening. So I need to let you know, we should probably start from the first episode and then move on in a chronological order. But I do have the least number of notes from the first episode. I want to say just out the gate that there is an overarching plot line. Because JR has been shot, he's not able to run the company, the Ewing Oil Company. And so, and this comes to the forefront in the very first episode where Jock, his father, stood by JR, where JR made all these bad decisions, all this scheming and wheeling and dealing. And the mother of the family, Ellie, is saying, hey, Jock, you should not have stood by JR and stood by what you thought was best for the company. You should have stood by Bobby because he tried to leave at the end of the last episode, which was this huge drama point. They have to get a freaking helicopter to bring him back onto the show. It's incredible.
They landed on the grass verge on the highway through Texas.
Highway. It looks genuinely dangerous, but I guess it's Texas. You can do whatever you want out there. I guess I want to know, Cam, how did you feel about these power plays? Because they kind of form the crux of the main familial drama of these episodes.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, Dallas is still about Bobby and Pam, the younger brother of the Ewing boys.
Yes, of the three of them?
Yes, and we see his plight as he goes through, thrust into a situation that he's trying to make the most of, but I don't think necessarily wants, but he's trying to make the most of anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Trying to do a good job, trying to be a good president, but no one takes him seriously, which I don't really blame them, to be honest.
Nobody's allowed to deal with him because in the second episode, the conflict is around Jock, his father, who, on the advice of Ellie Ewing, because she's the one who really knows what's going on, she says to him, Jock, she says, your youngest son, he's trying to leave the family. He's leaving South Fork, the ranch, everything behind. We need to make sure he doesn't leave. So make him the president of the company. Put him in charge, then he'll have to stay. I'm making it sound more cynical than she actually is because the speech she gives is all about like love and family.
I don't want my boy leaving South Fork. Give him a job he doesn't want.
His mama doesn't want him leaving.
Mama don't want him to leave.
Dada capitulates and says, all right, Bobby, I'm going to give you control of the business. But even when Jock says in words, he says, you know, Bobby, you can have control and you're in charge now. Bobby finds that he can't make any decisions. And the initial conflict with Jock is that Bobby is afraid he's going to be second guessed again. Because in the last episode, they talked about how he made a deal with the Barnes family about some oil rigs and essentially they undercut Bobby. They like cut out his decision at the end of the last episode. JR undercut him.
And then all through the second episode, Bobby can't make any moves because they need to get approval from Jock Ewing first.
Yeah, and well, also that Bobby just doesn't feel comfortable making any decisions because he fears being undercut again in the future. Yeah. Which is, of course, what happens. JR then undercuts him in the third episode because JR starts to get better. But the big drama moment at the end of the second episode, and this ties into the seduction that we alluded to earlier, is hold on now, is that Bobby says to his father, he says, I can't make any decisions unless you put it in writing that and this is his like lawful good sort of decision here.
Yes,
because he thinks that a piece of paper is going to protect him. But he says, if you put it in writing, Jock, that I am the president and no one can question my decisions, then I will actually make decisions in the company.
And then they get served by the family of Seth Stone. And then he can't work it out through legal channels. So he goes and sees Seth Stone's widow.
Marilee Stone, yeah.
Marilee Stone, who, after an impassioned speech from Bobby, says, well, maybe we can make a deal of our own, and insinuates that she wants to bang Bobby.
It's incredible.
Completely out of nowhere, which I found completely insane. But, business is business, right?
I mean, there's a good amount of sex in this show. Well, not sex, but Bobby without his shirt on in the opening scene is quite telling.
Front and center. He's front and center. He's just a lot of ladies in swimsuits. A lot of eye candy.
Especially in the second episode, there's a lot of scenes of Lucy and her friends. They're sun tanning and going to clubs, and there's a lot of dancing up and down, and it's all very ogly. It's kind of gross, honestly.
There's a scene with Pam in her swimsuit just for no reason, which is just, that's TV, I guess. That's Dallas, I guess.
That's Dallas, baby. But it does culminate in Lucy progressing her romantic plot line, which is great because she finds out that the professor she's been sleeping with, has a wife.
Oh my God.
And so she breaks it off with him, and she's met this lovely valet.
While absolutely just
hammered.
I was going to say something else, but yeah, completely hammered.
Yeah, she knows he's a good man because she's sloshed.
Yeah.
And he's a valet, and she's like, take me to my car. I'm going to drive home. And he's like, no, I'm going to get you a cab later.
And he pays for the cab. Very gentlemanly.
No, he has not even 2 cents to rub together, apparently.
No, he doesn't have 2 cents. No, it's just 1 cent. We can't rub 1 cent together.
Well, after he pays for the cab, he only has 1 cent left.
That's right.
The cab costs 1 cent. Everybody knows that in Dallas.
That's Dallas.
Cam, do you want to tell me about this doctor student and his many books?
Oh my God. So, as a man of science myself.
Yep, Dr. Cam.
We all know that in order to be perceived as bookish and intelligent and, well-read, that you must at all times be surrounded by books. Like, for example, if I had my camera on, you would see my desk covered in various books of science and academic pursuits, just layered on top of each other. And they've done that accurately in Dallas. We see, what's his name? Mitch?
I don't know. Does it matter?
I think his name's Mitch. Mitch's desk. And he's reading 6 books. He's got books, and then on the desk in front of him, and then he's got books on top of those books. They're all open. They're all open, and he's reading a book
pages.
as well as he's talking to Lucy.
Yes.
He's a real studious bookworm. That Mitch.
He's incredible because obviously on this sort of show, he only has 1 or 2 scenes per two scenes per episode. Actually.
More or less,
exactly 2 per episode. You need to make an impression. You need to make sure the audience understands exactly what his deal is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it means that they just hammer it on. He's got 6 books. They're all open. He tells this absolutely incredible saga of his family where he's like, my daddy never had 2 cents. He died at 30. My mama, she died when she was 31. And I've been working every day since. And every time.
And now I want to be a doctor. I'm going to work. I need all the jobs I can get.
Yeah, and it's incredible because obviously it's very efficient story.
Yes.
Let's say efficient characterization. I don't know if it's efficient storytelling.
No, it's absolutely. It's a very good characterization. Yes, we get his deal straight away.
But also, it's obviously there. He's there to serve Lucy as well because she's the actual main character. And so what we get to see. This is a great tangent. I love Lucy's such a wild character.
She's kind of there.
She's not really part of the main plot.
No, not at all. She's just hanging out. She even says I just got a lot of leisure time. I just hang around.
She does. That's her plot. Her plot is that she says to their ranch hand, she's like, I'm not going to let this man get away. He's amazing and he works so hard. And I love that he's a poor guy. That really turns me on for some reason.
It's the rich person love.
Yeah, I steal him away. And so she stalks him. She finds out his exact schedule and ambushes him and says, I know for a fact that you're free right now because you're always busy with jobs and study and whatever. And he's like, well, actually, I've got a new job right now that I'm starting right this second. I need to go. I'm just going to leave. And she complains at him. She goes off at him, basically. She pouts because
man. You told me. You certainly told me, and then leaves, which is great.
Well, yeah, it's incredible because she The thing that the ranch hand says to her is like, you are stubborn and you always get what you want. And so this is the classic, like, she really wants him, but she can't have him kind of story.
Yeah, she even makes a big song and dance about how she knows about poverty and hard work because her mum used to be a waitress. And she goes, oh, I love your lifestyle. You have such agency. I just
sit around and
don't do
drink.
anything anywhere. Jesus. I wish I had, my life was like yours. No, you don't. Are you kidding me? Oh, you wouldn't last a day.
She's really fun.
Yeah.
No, I genuinely enjoy how awful she is.
Yes.
The writers are like, because obviously we've got Bobby the hero who's going through some hard times, but then we got all these other schemy characters and less valorous characters. And Lucy is definitely, like, she stands up for herself. Like, let's be clear, her getting one over on her professor is great.
That's really good. Fantastic stuff.
She's clearly supposed to be like a selfish, rich white girl, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of love that.
Yeah. I think also this whole situation with JR being shot has allowed the writers to examine some other characters in the show a little bit more closely without having the presence of JR in the show, which I assume was quite large at the time. Lucy's a great example of that. We get a lot of scenes with Lucy interacting with her friends, going out, with subplot with her professor and how that resolves itself. And I guess allowing them to bring Gary back, which I assume at the time was a pretty big deal, character from a spin-off show, coming back to revisit the family, which is pretty neat. So, yeah.
Yeah, and let's not understate the amount of time that we spend talking to Gary. We're not going to spend too much time on talking about it right now because it's a waste of time. But basically, he comes on and he tells everybody about how much he's missed them for like half an hour out of a single episode. It's ridiculous. There's a lot more subplots going on, but the highlights... Sue Ellen is still, she talks about how she's having a horrible nightmare that she may have shot JR, which is really fun. And we'll probably get into that in the mystery section. And Pam and Bobby's relationship is on the rocks again because after declaring his love for her once more and trying to leave the show, they've been brought back on and now he's got even more responsibility. And so Pam decides to go and buy a bunch of fur coats to make herself feel better.
What are you doing, Pam? I just shop around all day. Wonderful.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there's a couple of extra plots. Like Cliff Barnes is around. He gets accused of shooting, but then they find out that his gun hasn't been fired or whatever.
It doesn't match the bullet.
That's what it is. And I guess most importantly, in the second half of the second episode and most of the third episode, we do catch up with JR and we get to see him on his road to recovery, which is kind of fun because, as you say, his absence from the show allows other characters to shine, but also showing such a strong-willed, important character, you know, the main star of the show at this point, in a way that he can't do anything for himself. Sue Ellen or a nurse has to like push him around in his little wheelchair.
He hates it.
And he hates it, yeah. He's like, just let me do it myself. And he just can't handle the idea of like losing control, both over the company to Bobby, which he interferes with over the phone, and obviously with his own walking. Like he can't handle the idea of losing his legs and like losing what he sees as, you know, this essential power that he holds over his life.
And they've brought that character down a few pegs, and it's interesting to see his struggle with his new position and having to rely on other people rather than pushing everyone around himself.
Yeah, because all he ever does, I mean, even when he's in his wheelchair, all he does is lie to people. Whenever Bobby comes to talk to him and says, are you undermining me? Are you calling people that I'm trying to do business with and telling them not to do business with me because you want to be the one in charge? And
no, of course not, Bobby. I'll never do that to you.
I never do that to my brother.
And he does it immediately in the next scene.
And he does it, yeah, he immediately, as soon as Bobby leaves the room, picks up a phone and calls whoever.
You better not be doing deals with Bobby, I swear to God.
Yeah, you better stall him forever.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's feasible and definitely going to end well.
For sure.
All right, well, that'll about do us for discussion of the story. We will, of course, be back in the third part with the mystery discussion. So look forward to that. I'm really excited to see Cam give a go at resolving this one. And it's solving who shot JR, the literally 46-year-old mystery at time of speaking. We will be back with more of Who Shot JR. Stay tuned. You're on 2SCR 107.3. You're listening to Death of the Reader. This is Herds and Cam for the second episode of Who Shot JR. We are, of course, discussing Season 4, Episodes 1 to 3 of the American TV show Dallas. which had 5 TV movies and a 2012 reboot. I learned today. This was a popular show, and they just kept bringing it back.
Dallas can never die.
Can't keep getting away with this. Honestly, I feel like they can't keep getting away with such an amazing intro.
Oh my God.
If I had been allowed to, it will have played at some point during this episode.
Oh no, we can't have the Dallas theme playing in the intro.
Look, I won't know until the producers give me the go ahead.
I'm the producer, and I say it's fine.
Well, I'm gonna have to check with the lawyers then, and you're not my lawyer, as far as I know.
That's true.
But you know who is a lawyer?
Cliff Barnes.
Is he a lawyer?
I don't know.
Is that what he is? He gets. I will say he does get fired during the episode.
Alan Bean. Alan Bean is a lawyer.
Alan Beam. Yeah, it's the guy. Speaking of Alan Beam, you need to figure out who shot JR.
Oh my God.
There's a lot that's going on in these couple of episodes.
Yeah. Well, I think first we should start by looking at my original theory that crashed and burned immediately. Let's start with that.
So I mentioned that I have very few notes for the first episode. My only large note is, quote, the bumbling cop immediately identifies Marilee Stone as the main culprit, which is the same as Cam's first guess. Very funny moment.
Oh man, she gets some scenes, but I was so upset.
Yeah.
I just genuinely just had to take a moment at that point because I've been outsmarted again. I've been got twice.
It's okay.
So yeah, okay.
Yeah, I suppose we should say the bit of this solve is that I am going to be stealing some of your points. I'm going to get at least one of your points just based on that failure of a solve from last time on the show.
Oh, come on. That's a bit harsh.
No, it's not. That's how it works. For every episode that you need to use as evidence, I steal 1 additional point. But I will still be grading you out of 3 points in order to actually, to give you your grade, your scorecard.
Thank you.
So I'm getting at least 1
That's
point.
Dallas,
but
I
whether
suppose.
you get the other ones, that's Dallas, baby. But yeah, I guess there's been a lot of clues. A lot of stuff has happened. We've seen JR taken to the hospital, recover. Nobody's shown up to shoot him a second time, which is kind of fun.
I was waiting I think that whole second episode, I felt like it was building up to someone coming into the hospital room to choke him out with a pillow.
Well, in the third episode, he even complains at his guards because they just let anybody in.
Yeah.
Anybody could just walk in here and shoot me. It's crazy. You guards are incompetent.
Some competitor comes in and like, hey, JR, heard you're
wish you were dead. Yeah.
Wish you all the best in your recovery. And he goes, what the hell is that, guys? It could have anyone could have come in, and then Kristen in 2 scenes later just walks in and taunts him.
She's like, "You'll never be the man you used to be," and she smokes a cigarette. She doesn't actually, but
you'll get yours, but not from me. Like, damn,
yeah.
Look at this gal go.
There's some tension there. She rolls the wheelchair that JR is, of course, objecting to across the floor in front of him, which really sets him off. We've got Cliff Barnes, who, even though he's been put on the fence as far as suspects go, according to the police, he has admitted to Pam that he did go to JR's office in order to shoot him, but he says that he just didn't get there quite in time. Somebody already shot them.
And I was wondering why he was in the scenes outside Ewing Tower, I guess it's called.
When they're taking JR.
As he's being wheeled out to the ambulance, he's in the crowd watching it happen. So I was wondering why he's there. There you go.
Yeah, when JR's being loaded up into the ambulance, we get some reaction shots, some tense reaction shots from Cliff Barnes, as though he doesn't want to get spotted there for some reason. But there is, of course, the most important clue that, we've been throwing around the idea of whose gun shot who. But it turns out, according to police analysis, when Jock finds JR's gun in JR's own cupboard, as they're trying to find clothes to put on him as they're moving him from the hospital to it's a whole thing. It doesn't matter. The point is Jock finds JR's gun in JR's room, hidden in a pile of clothes in the cupboard, and the gun has been fired twice.
Yes.
And the cop, and this is the best part of all 3 episodes, at the very end, in the last minute of the 3rd episode, comes in and says, "We figured out whose fingerprints were on the gun. It's Mrs. Ewing's." And everybody looks at Grandma like, "Oh my God, what were your fingers doing on the gun?" He says, "Oh no, actually, sorry, Sue Ellen."
Sue Ellen Ewing. And then sting,
so
episode end. What a way to reveal some evidence to some traumatized family members is to be vague.
to be super vague and like it's Mrs. Ewing and everybody looks at Mum because she's Mrs. Ewing. Sue Ellen has always been referred to as Sue Ellen.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And we can definitely trust that evidence. Like that
Of course we can. I think so.
Sue Ellen was seen toting that gun around all of this finale of season 3, and she definitely shot JR.
She definitely had her hands on the gun, according to the police analysis. So I guess
Absolutely.
This is something that I'd like to ask you maybe, because you have to give me a killer who is not Merrily Stone this week in order to get one of your points, and you're just going to get that point, which is nice for you. But I guess you are going to have to account for this gun that has Sue Ellen's fingerprints on it and JR's. So it can't have been wiped recently, because how would his fingerprints have gotten on the gun? Maybe you have an explanation for that.
It was Jock's fingerprints and Sue Ellen's fingerprints on the gun because Jock found it.
Good point. Well then, I guess you tell me what's going on.
Well, I have a real killer of a theory for you now. All right? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for anything.
I'm pointing my finger at Kristen, our femme fatale, for the following reasons. In the opening of the first episode of season 4, we see Sue Ellen after a very long panning shot at Dallas Airport.
Oh my goodness. I forgot about the panning shot. It's like legitimately 2 minutes long.
Yeah, they pan and they pan and they pan and it settles on Sue Ellen in the Ewing station wagon parked at the airport.
Why is she at the airport?
Because she went on a bender the night that JR was killed, after she went to her psychiatrist's office and basically had a bit of a breakdown and said, I'm going to go kill JR. And the sting, and she had the gun in her bag.
Yep, that was the end of the last episode of last season.
Pick it up. She's in the car. She drives off, and we follow her around a bit, and she's trying to piece together what happened that night. And one of the characters she speaks to is Kristen. And apparently, according to Kristen, Sue Ellen came to her condo. We get a flashback, and I'm doing big inverted commas here, a flashback as Kristen describes the scene to Sue Ellen as to what happened. Sue Ellen apparently came back to her condo as Kristen was packing to leave because JR had told her to skip town, otherwise he'd have people come get her or something. And Sue Ellen is just completely drunk. She's hysterical. She's waving a gun around. And apparently Kristen gave her a drink, which I don't know why you'd do that, gave her another drink.
To still her nerves, of course.
Tried to take the gun off her, but she couldn't. She couldn't do it. And then Sue Ellen said to Kristen that she's going to go kill JR and then left. And then Kristen just apparently let her go because she didn't want to be shot or something, which I don't buy a goddamn word of. I don't buy it at all. I compared it to Mr. ABC in the ABC murders, where the murderer is gaslighting a mentally unwell character into believing that they shot the victim, in this case JR, the mentally unwell person being Sue Ellen, in order to divert suspicion away from her. And of course, what did Kristen use to shoot JR with? JR's gun that she took from Sue Ellen, probably wearing gloves of some kind, went to JR's office, shot him, and then put it back in the cupboard where she probably knows JR keeps it because they were sleeping together and she knows where he keeps his gun.
They were.
Leaving the only fingerprints on the gun as being Sue Ellen's. And there's my killer. It's Kristen.
I like it a lot. I guess my main question is, we haven't actually seen that much of Kristen. She's mostly shown up to like taunt JR, which has been really fun, actually. I've really been enjoying that. I like that you've drawn a parallel with a Christie novel because, for one thing, that means that we're basically doing our taxes early if this is secretly a Christie novel, which is incredible. But I like that you've got some theoretical backing there. Now, I have to ask, why did Kristen shoot JR then, if it is indeed Kristen? Obviously, there was the discussion in the previous episode about how he was trying to run her out of town because she was like investigating his shenanigans. Do you think that he was shot in order to try and not get run out of town? But like, why didn't she finish the job? She shot him twice. Surely she had like 6 bullets in the gun, right? It's a revolver. So why wouldn't you finish the job, you know?
The reason for that, okay, the reasons why Kristen shot JR. First one, spurned lover. It is stated that they have a romantic history. JR was having an affair with her. Then JR also said some pretty nasty things to her. You know, you got something like you got a great body. You can just go down to Brazil and those Brazilian billionaires will pay you whatever you want to sleep with them.
That's true. Very vindictive.
Gave her a wad of money to get out of town with Alan Beam, who she was helping investigate JR's unethical business deals. So she has a whole slew of reasons to shoot JR. She was one of the characters in the finale who stated outright they were going to shoot JR, but basically everyone said that they were going to shoot JR in that episode. And we haven't really seen much of her since then, right? It fits in the discussion on the narrative tropes that we had in the first episode, where it can't be a member of the core cast who shot JR. It can't be any of the family members, and it can't be Cliff Barnes, because they're too close to the core. If anything in that core group of character changes, it's going to change the status quo of the show too much. So it has to be someone familiar enough for it to be a big betrayal, but not close enough where it's going to shake things up too much. Because at the end of the day, this is an American soap opera, and we like to keep things nice and steady.
I suppose I'm curious. You say that she's not part of the main cast, but she is part of the cast of characters that visits JR at the hospital. She's even there at the initial visit. If it is Kirsten who's done a shoot, why is she sticking so close to JR and his family? Surely she should be trying to get as far away as humanly possible.
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Because that's the first thing that any guilty person would do, is to get as far away as possible immediately after you shoot someone. If you want to make it look like you're not at all suspicious, you ingratiate yourself with the family, make them feel like they can trust you, and even if you are accused, the family will, in your mind, will try and defend you. Right?
Okay.
I think at one point, Ellie Ewing says, Kristen's been so good in helping us, through this time, and helping Sue Ellen out, who was feeling a little bit unstable. So that is the perfect position for you to be if you have shot JR. Actually, and to answer your question just from before, why didn't she finish the job? I don't know. It was dark. Maybe she thought she got him twice in the gut is enough.
Okay. I guess I want to be clear. I am going to put a point on this, because this year we've been super tough on the show. The reason why, and this would apply to anybody, whoever you say the killer is, the reason why the character might stick around and also sort of the motivation for the shooting is definitely going to comprise one of your 3 points that you may be able to receive. So I guess I'm curious, if you're going with Kristen as your killer, you think she's just sticking around so to seem less conspicuous? That's your reasoning for why she's sticking around? Because she says she's basically part of the family, right?
For motivation, she's sticking around. I think it's just to make herself look less suspicious. Narratively, we need to keep her around so the audience remembers who she is when it's revealed that she's the killer.
I know you mentioned many different motivations for why she might have shot JR, but if you had to pick one, what would you go with?
I would just say just revenge. It kind of covers all in this situation. And just to say why she hasn't finished the job, I think she just wanted to see JR taking down a couple of pegs. Maybe she didn't want to outright kill him. She just wanted to make him hurt a little bit, remind him of his vulnerability and his humanity. I
like that theory. I like the way that you've gone around sort of poking Kristen. And I know that you did sort of mention things from later episodes, but I think that the crux of your evidence comes from the first part of season 4. So it's pretty good. I like that. I like that a lot. I think I have all that I need right now. I should probably formally ask you whether you're going to stick with the Kristen theory or go back to your Mary Lee Stone theory. But I feel like
I'm sticking with the Kristen theory. I like it. However, if it ends up being Mary Lee Stone, I'm going to riot.
Wouldn't that be an incredible twist if it was the character that I made fun of you for picking in the first part of the show?
I would be so upset.
Okay, that would be an incredible situation.
If that happens, listeners, I guarantee it, and this is a Cam guarantee.
It's going to be a real murder.
There'll be a real murder. You will see a breakdown live on air. It will happen.
It's going to be Who Shot BJ Hurts next week on the show. Flex is going to have to solve it.
It's going to be the easiest solve in murder mystery history.
I know. Well, that's why I keep a little book in my breast pocket that says who is most likely to have killed me. And the first person is Flex, but the second person is Cam.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for your fantastic effort at solving this book.
Thank you very much.
We will be back next week for more Death of the Radio Murder Mystery World Tour for just the 4th episode of season 4 of the hit American TV show Dallas.
Man, they've really dragged this out.
Called Who Done It?
Who Done It?
Who Done It? Now, I do want to point out that there are some elements of the story that will continue on throughout the season, but we are not going to watch the entire season of Dallas for one episode. It's not going to happen. So we'll be discussing just the 4th episode.
Sorry, Flex. This is now a Dallas show.
Death of the Dallas? Death of the Texan?
Dallas of the Reader.
Doesn't make sense though. Anyway,
Doesn't matter.
We'll be back this week on the show with Who Done It, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too.
You are listening to Death of the Reader. Murder Mystery World 2 on 2SCR 107.3. We're out of here.